Welcome to our web blog, video blog about New Church Ministry. I'm Roger Burns Watson. Along with my wife Janice, we're the founding ministers of Tree of Life Christian Church in Delaware, Ohio. Today we're wanting to talk about place and the importance of where you meet and how you meet in New Church Ministry. And a lot of the churches that we've been in, and we've been in a number of churches all over the country, usually the building can take on sort of a life of its own. It'll end up on the covers of bulletins. It often ends up as a picture on the homepage, on websites, that people are pretty tied to a particular place. Sometimes that's healthy, sometimes it's unhealthy, but it provides a lot of congregations an opportunity to meet when they want, how they want, to kind of control their life together. Well, for new churches, that's not always possible. We don't have the numbers or the resources available to us to own our own building or to sustain our own building. And we're also encountering questions about whether that's something we ever really want to do. It takes a lot of money to build a structure. It takes a lot of money to maintain a structure. And a lot of the people that are becoming a part of our community, we're asking ourselves, is this really how we want to spend our resources? Is this what good stewardship is all about? Do we want to start chasing the dollars necessary in order to build a building somewhere down the road 2-3 years from now, and then constantly chase the money to make the mortgage payment, to pay for the water and the lights and the sewage? But you're balancing that against the fact that we do live in a culture in which being a vagrant, being a transient, not having your own place, not having something that you can point to identify who you are, is not always affirmed. It's not always appreciated. People ask, where do you meet? Your building can become a landmark if you've put it in the right place. People know where you are because they see your physical structure. If you don't have that, if you don't have that presence, it's hard for people to really kind of take you seriously sometimes. So it takes a lot of effort to build relationships, but also to rethink and move beyond this idea that church is a place, even as we recognize that there is value to having that place. What we're discovering right now is we're growing out of a house church, and where we're meeting in our house and other places aren't big enough anymore. We're going to have to start renting, is that we don't have control over always being able to rent what we want, when we want, for as long as we want. And even if we can get it, there are cost factors involved. The local school district here was pretty expensive. It was going to cost us almost $350 for 2 hours to meet. And you can't do that very often, and obviously there are events that happen at the school that would preclude you from using it. Parent-teacher conferences. This was an elementary school. So when they're having parent-teacher conferences or other activities, you may not be able to get into the building. We found another alternative through a county park, a building that they have, but you have to request it at least a month in advance in writing. And that doesn't mean it's kind of a first come, first serve, so it doesn't mean that we'll always get what we want when we want. So certainly having a place of your own, having something that you can decide, okay, we want to do an event at this time on this day, and we don't have to worry about asking anybody's permission, has to be balanced against the fact that you have to pay for that kind of freedom and that kind of control over your life together, and how much are you willing to pay for it. We've looked into renting spaces in a strip mall, which is incredibly expensive to do because they're retail, and they assume that you're there to make money, not as a nonprofit. And the leasing companies we've talked to aren't necessarily looking for a tax write-off right now where they're going to give it to us at a discount. This is something that all new churches go through. It's not unique to Tree of Life, but it is something that's part of the growing process, and what we as a community have to figure out. What do we want to spend our resources on? What defines good stewardship? What is the balance between having that freedom and control over when you meet and how you meet versus having to actually be concerned with raising enough money to make it work? And so that's kind of where we're at today. Be interested to hear some comments and feedbacks from folks that look at this video, and how would you handle that situation? What are the values and priorities that you would put on physical space in terms of a community worshiping, moving together in mission and ministry?